Today's lesson is Time for Breakfast. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And we've got a conversation today between Kevin and Joyce all about eating breakfast, whether you should have a good breakfast or not. Helen, did you have a good breakfast today?
Yes, I did. I had a coffee and I put oat milk in my coffee, so I think I had a good breakfast.
Me too. I had a couple of eggs and I had a font one. But indeed, some people do believe that having a good breakfast is a good start to an active day. And again, they are talking about this in this conversation. Joyce and Kevin, they are co-workers. And gee whiz, Kevin's stomach is grumbling. What's going on there? Let's find out. Let's listen to the first part of today's lesson right now.
Time for breakfast. A quick and easy breakfast. At the office one morning, Kevin's coworker Joyce hears Kevin's stomach grumbling.
Kevin, did you skip breakfast again?
I had a cup of coffee. Does that count?
Not in my book. You really should eat something if you want to be at the top of your game.
Well, I'm certainly grateful that you're concerned for my well-being. But in all seriousness, what makes you think breakfast is so critical?
Plenty of scientific research for one thing. Studies have shown that eating a good breakfast has a lot of benefits.
Such as?
Like I said earlier, better performance in daily tasks and chores, not to mention a healthy weight and more stable blood sugar levels.
That is pretty convincing.
So, how about some oatmeal? Just add water, and this instant oatmeal only takes a few minutes in the microwave. And if you eat something, I won't have to hear your stomach growling.
Okay, your wish is my command.
大家好，第一部分我们可以看到单字 coworker， 它是名词，指的是同事。例如 Meg's coworkers often say that she has a nice writing style.Meg 的同事常说她的写作风格很棒。接下来我们看到单字 chore， 它是名词，意思是日常杂物、琐事或是家务事。举例来说 Johnny's mother wouldn't let him go out until he finished his chores. Johnny 的妈妈等到他做完家里杂物才准他出门。又或者说 Every Sunday morning, George and Anya do household chores and shop for food.每周日早上 George 和 Anya 都会做家事和采买食物。再来我们看到形容词 convincing， 指的是具有说服力的或是令人信服的。例如 Ted made a convincing argument for not buying property in the current market. Ted 提出了一个令人信服的理由，反对在当前市场上购买房产。或是 The lawyer made several convincing points.那名律师提出了几个有说服力的观点。另外补充这个字的动词 convince， C-O-N-V-I-N-C-E convince， 它的意思是说服或是使确信。我们可以说 Robert convinced his uncle to invest in his business. Robert 说服叔叔投资他的生意。也可以说 Winston came up with an elaborate plan to convince Gina to go out with him.Winston 提出一个精心制作的计划，要说服 Gina 跟他约会。
The first part of today's lesson, titled Time for Breakfast, is a quick and easy breakfast. And we have Kevin and Joyce. They are at the office one morning. And Joyce is Kevin's coworker. So your coworker is somebody who works with you in the same office or in the same situation. So Kevin and Joyce are coworkers. And Joyce hears Kevin's stomach grumbling. So evidently Joyce sits very close to Kevin, so she could hear his stomach grumbling. To grumble is to make a low, continuous sound. You could also say that somebody is complaining when they grumble. That person won't stop grumbling. They won't stop complaining. Like they talk like this. They're not happy about anything. So a low, continuous sound that somebody makes.
Indeed, sometimes your stomach will grumble just before lunchtime because you're getting hungry after working so hard in the morning. And yes, indeed, Kevin's stomach is grumbling and Joyce can hear it. And Joyce says, Kevin, did you skip breakfast again? Of course, if you skip something, you don't do something that you normally should. And he just didn't eat breakfast. Maybe he was in a hurry to get out the door and head to work. And Kevin says, I had a cup of coffee. Does that count? Indeed. Does a cup of coffee count as breakfast? I would say not myself.
And Joyce says, not in my book. So here we have the phrase in my book, which is used when you want to give a strong opinion about something. So you could say, for instance, Bob Dylan is the greatest musician of all time in my book, which means in my opinion. So in Joyce's opinion, just a cup of coffee does not count as breakfast. And she says, you really should eat something if you want to be at the top of your game.
Exactly. So if you're at the top of your game, you're performing as well as you can. You're totally alert. You've got great skills and you're beating all the competition. So you're at the top of your game. Many years ago, Jeremy Lin was at the top of his game when he played for the New York Knicks and he became a big sensation. Then after that, he didn't play so well. He was no longer at the top of his game. And yes, indeed, according to Joyce, you need to have a good breakfast in order to be at the top of your game, in order to perform as well as you can. And Kevin says, well, I'm certainly grateful that you're concerned for my well-being. Your well-being just means how well you're surviving, how healthy you are. And of course, he's grateful, he's thankful that she is concerned about his health, about his well-being.
And then he says, but in all seriousness, what makes you think breakfast is so critical? Here he says, in all seriousness. You say this when you want to be serious. So you could substitute the phrase in all seriousness with but seriously or joking aside. And this suggests that his first sentence, the first thing he said, I'm certainly grateful that you're concerned for my well-being, was said in a tone that wasn't very serious, like he was joking. Perhaps he thought that Joyce was acting too much like a mother to him or like an older sister. So in a half-joking way, he says, well, I'm glad you're concerned about my health, about my well-being.
Indeed. A lot of times people are joking with each other, but sometimes you need to hear clear information so you can say, well, in all seriousness, or to be serious, or you could also say, but seriously, what makes you think breakfast is so critical? Why is it so important? Why is it so crucial? Why is it so key? And Joyce says, well, plenty of scientific research for one thing. So she's got lots of reasons why breakfast is so important. And one example is scientific research. That's one example I've got of why breakfast is so important. Scientific research, research done by scientists in laboratories or at universities.
Yes, and she goes on to explain. Studies have shown that eating a good breakfast has a lot of benefits. And Kevin says, such as, he replies to mean, can you give me an example? What are some of the benefits that eating a good breakfast can bring? And Joyce replies, like I said earlier, better performance in daily tasks and chores, not to mention a healthy weight and more stable blood sugar levels.
Exactly. So, of course, here we've got the word chores. That's the plural form of the noun chore. And that's just something you need to do in your daily life. Oftentimes, children growing up in their home will be given chores. They will be given household duties. It's your turn to sweep the floor or mop the floor or dust the furniture, do the dishes, clean the toilet, etc., etc. Those are various chores that you need to do. I'm from a small town, so a lot of my friends lived on farms, and they always talked about the chores they had to do around the farm, feeding the pigs, cleaning up the mess, all that stuff were part of the chores that they had to do on the farm. And yes, indeed, you need to have breakfast to perform your chores and your duties as best as you can. And it can also help you maintain a healthy weight. You won't be too fat, you won't be too slim, and you can have stable blood sugar levels. If you screw up those, you might get sick later on and you might get diabetes.
That's right. So there are many reasons why a person should eat a good breakfast. And Kevin replies, that is pretty convincing. So something that is convincing makes you believe that it's true, or it can persuade you to do something or to think a certain way. For instance, a few years ago, I saw a video about why eating a vegetarian diet is good for your health. And I found that the doctor in this video was very convincing. So after seeing that video, I decided maybe I should become vegetarian too.
Indeed, lots of information can be convincing, or of course it's not convincing and you don't believe it. Here's what Joyce says. So, how about some oatmeal? Of course, that's oats that are cooked with water. There are different kinds of oatmeal that you can eat. And she says, just add water. And this instant oatmeal only takes a few minutes in the microwave. I do remember instant oatmeal. It is a quick breakfast. You just empty the packet into a bowl. You add water to it. You pop it in the microwave and you heat it for, 30 seconds or 1 minute or whatever. And voila, you've got yourself an instant breakfast.
Yes, so Joyce recommends eating some oatmeal for breakfast, and she takes out a packet of instant oatmeal and she hands him this packet. A packet is a small bag or a small box of food. It can also contain condiments. We often say a packet of ketchup or a packet of mustard. You can also have packets of salt and pepper. Those are the little envelopes or little bags of these condiments that you sometimes get from fast food restaurants.
So again, Joyce makes the suggestion, if you eat something, I won't have to hear your stomach growling. And growling is similar to grumbling. It's just the sound that your stomach may make, or if you're complaining about something, or if you're a dog and you're angry, you might be growling at an intruder or something. And Kevin is laughing. Okay, your wish is my command. When we say this, your wish is my command, that means I'm going to do what you just told me to do. And we often say this in a joking way. And that brings us to the end of part 1. Let's move on to part 2 and talk about breakfast choices. There is more to breakfast than oatmeal.
Breakfast choices. After finishing the oatmeal, Kevin asks Joyce what she has for breakfast.
Since you're so keen on the importance of breakfast, I'm curious what you usually eat.
If I've got time, I like to make a full, hearty breakfast with things like avocado toast, scrambled eggs, and a fruit smoothie.
And what if you're running late and don't have time for all that?
Then I just pick up something healthy on the way to work, like some soy milk and a vegetarian breakfast sandwich.
Wow, so you really are an advocate for never skipping breakfast, huh?
That's right. I just think it's crucial to get the nutrients and energy I need to carry me through the morning until lunchtime. Not that I never skip breakfast, but I definitely try not to unless I'm really under the gun and don't have a minute to spare.
Right, and if you've even got a few minutes, you could at least have some instant oatmeal.
Exactly.
第二部分我们看到单字 keen， 它是形容词，意思是热衷的、很有兴趣的或是渴望的。举例来说 Jan is keen on going to the movies tonight. Jan 很想今晚去看电影。又或者是 Eric was keen to show off his computer coding skills to his friends. Eric 热衷于向朋友炫耀他的电脑编码技能。接着我们看到形容词 hearty， 它的意思是食物丰盛的、大量的或是精力充沛的。我们可以说 You should eat a hearty breakfast every day. 你应该每天吃一顿丰盛的早餐。也可以说 Ben looks hearty and well-rested after his 2-week vacation. 2周的假期结束后 Ben 看起来精力充沛、精神焕发。最后我们看到单字 crucial， 它是形容词，指的是至关重要的或是关键性的。例如 Lucy made a crucial error on her driving test. Lucy 在驾驶测验上犯了个决定性的错误。再举一个例子 For several crucial moments during the surgery, the patient's heart stopped beating. 在手术中好几个关键时刻，病患的心脏停止了跳动。
Part 2 is titled Breakfast Choices, and Kevin has finished the packet of instant oatmeal that Joyce had given him. After finishing the oatmeal, Kevin asks Joyce what she has for breakfast, and he says, "Since you're so keen on the importance of breakfast, I'm curious what you usually eat."
Okay, so here we've got the phrase to be keen on something. That means you find this thing very important. You really like this thing and you want other people to know about it. So, yeah, because you're so keen on the importance of breakfast, because you think breakfast is so important, I'm curious about what you usually eat. Yeah, do you eat oatmeal? Do you eat cereal? Do you eat youtiao or whatever? And Joyce says, well, if I've got time, I like to make a full hearty breakfast with things like avocado toast, scrambled eggs, and a fruit smoothie. Well, who's got time to prepare a breakfast like that? That's quite a exotic kind of breakfast, at least to me. And we're talking about her having a hearty breakfast. So if something's hearty, it's full of life, and of course it can be cheerful, it can be vigorous, it can be really wonderful. So you might have hearty laughter. If you hear a really funny joke, you might laugh heartily. That's the adverb. But here we're talking about a hearty breakfast, a breakfast that is really tasty, it fills you up, and it's got lots of nutrition.
Yes, and Kevin says, and what if you're running late and don't have time for all that? Because Joyce was saying that if she had time, that's what she would make, a breakfast that would take more time to make. And Kevin says, well, what if you don't have time? What do you eat in those cases? And Joyce says, then I just pick up something healthy on the way to work, like some soy milk and a vegetarian breakfast sandwich. So we mentioned that word in the last part, vegetarian, and when it's referring to a meal, it means a meal that doesn't contain any meat. You can also use vegetarian to talk about a person who does not eat meat, who does not include meat in their diet.
Exactly. So if you're a Buddhist or whatever, you might be a vegetarian. And remember, if you're eating a vegetarian diet, you need to make sure you get protein from someplace. And it looks like Joyce is getting her protein from soy milk. And the sandwich, of course, is a vegetarian sandwich. It won't have any ham or chicken in there or things like that. And Kevin says, wow, so you really are an advocate for never skipping breakfast, huh? If you're an advocate for something, that means you support this position and you tell other people that they should do this thing too. You can be an advocate for children's rights, for example. You're always writing to your representative and telling them to pass laws that help protect children and things like that. You're an advocate for peace or whatever. There are lots of things you can be an advocate for. And she firmly believes, at least according to Kevin, that she thinks a breakfast is very important. So she's an advocate for not skipping breakfast. Some people say you should skip breakfast, that it's not necessary. I think there are different opinions on this topic.
Yes, and as a side note, the word advocate also has a verb form, but it would be pronounced advocate. So a person could advocate children's rights. That person would be an advocate of children's rights. So moving along, Joyce replies, that's right. Kevin had just said, you really are an advocate for never skipping breakfast. And Joyce says, that's right. I just think it's crucial to get the nutrients and energy I need to carry me through the morning until lunchtime.
Okay, so if something's crucial, it's very important, it's key, it's vital, and nutrients, of course, are things in your food that help you be healthy, like vitamins and minerals. Those are various nutrients, and if you have a breakfast, you will have great nutrition, and you'll have energy to get you through the morning until lunchtime, when you can have lunch after your stomach starts growling then. And then she says, not that I never skip breakfast, but I definitely try not to unless I'm really under the gun and don't have a minute to spare. So not that I never skip breakfast, which means, well, sometimes I do skip breakfast. Sometimes I can't help it. I'm in a hurry. I've got to get out the door. She says, I might be under the gun, which means you are pressured to do something quickly. So maybe you just don't have time to stop and get something to eat for breakfast. You got to rush off to the office and take care of some pressing matters.
Yes, and when you're under the gun, you might not have a minute to spare. when you do have a minute to spare, it means that you have extra time or you have enough time to do something. You can also say that you have some money to spare, which means you have extra money to buy things that you don't need or to lend to people or to give to people. But when you don't have a minute to spare, that means you don't have any time. When you don't have a penny to spare or a dollar to spare, it means you don't have any money, extra money to give away or to use.
Yes, indeed. And Kevin says, right. And if you've even got a few minutes, you could at least have some instant oatmeal. So yes, she might not have a minute to spare for any kind of breakfast, but if she does have a few minutes, then she could have instant oatmeal. That's better than nothing. Ideally, of course, she would like to have that avocado toast and that fruit smoothie and stuff like that, which takes time to prepare. But if she has maybe just a minute or maybe 2 minutes, then that's enough time to have some instant oatmeal or some kind of similar breakfast. Like for me, sometimes a bowl of cereal with some milk on it can be chomped down in less than 2 minutes.
That's right. So in the end, it's really up to the person, I think. Some people advocate a hearty breakfast, and other people can't stand the idea of eating a big breakfast because it'll make them sleepy. And I think in the end, it depends on the person's own constitution, how their body works.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. We'd now like to hear from Hanny for a few minutes.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。在课文第一部分的对话里，当 Kevin 被问到是不是又没吃早餐了，他说他喝了一杯咖啡，这样算吗？那么 Joyce 回答Not in my book. You really should eat something if you want to be at the top of your game. 好，我们这边要介绍两个用语。第一个要介绍的是 in one's book， 意思其实就相当于 in one's opinion， 用来表达依某人之见，在某人看来就是就某人的观点啊、看法等等。好，所以当 Joyce 说 not in my book， 意思就是对我来说不算，在我看来啊，喝一杯咖啡不算是吃早餐。好，那么第二个介绍的用语是 at the top of one's game， 或者是说 on top of one's game， 这是表达在某人的最佳状态，处于巅峰。那么 game 原本是指游戏啊、比赛，那在这边它是指领域、行业。那这个用语其实就是指说在某个领域，可能是工作或比赛等等，它的表现达到顶峰啊，呈现最佳状态。好，我们也顺便补充几个跟 top 有关的用语。第一个是 come out on top， 这个片语用在比赛的情境时呢，表示经过一番激烈的竞争之后，终于打败对手，胜出夺冠。那它就有那种在竞争或比赛中获胜、名列前茅的意思。那如果是用在面对危机或困难，则可以表达努力克服万难，最后终于成功。第二个介绍的是 blow one's top， 字面意思好像是把某人头顶炸开，那就好像中文说的怒发冲冠、火冒三丈，那它就是指说勃然大怒、非常生气的意思。第三个补充的是 off the top of one's head，字面意思是在某人的头顶之外，那就表示不用动脑筋就想得出来咯，这就类似我们中文说的不假思索。好，那同样在这段对话里面 Joyce 她有解释吃一顿优质早餐的好处，像是在每天的工作和杂务上有更好的表现，更不用说是健康的体重和更稳定的血糖值。好，文中她用到 not to mention， not to mention 是表达更别说、更不用说怎么样怎么样，那它常常接在肯定句的后面，用来加强前一句的肯定陈述。举例来说 The food at the restaurant is delicious, not to mention healthy。 那间餐厅的食物很美味，更别说是有益健康了。那这边也补充一下，如果是 much less 或者是 let alone， 也可以表达那种更遑论什么什么，更不用说是什么什么。不过他们常常接在否定句或是带有否定意味的子句之后，用来加强前面的否定陈述。举例来说 She didn't want to look at him, let alone talk to him。 她连看都不想看他，更不用说是跟他讲话了。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Chore. Glenn's mother gave him the chore of washing the dishes after dinner every night. Convincing. The lawyer's arguments were quite convincing to the judge. Keen. Lauren is keen on soccer and plays every weekend. Vegetarian. Mr. Singh eats meat occasionally, but usually has vegetarian meals for lunch. Advocate. Vera is a strong advocate for stricter environmental laws. Crucial. Neil knows that it's crucial to practice if he wants to become better at playing the piano. Nutrient. Junk food can be very tasty, but is generally lacking in nutrients.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.